Everyone, welcome to another design review. This is partially part of our season of version 14 design reviews and one of four that we're doing today. So let's start off with the longest, shortest story.
Right. So this is something we discussed earlier this summer, and one of the things was that we should add some documentation clarifying the situation. So you should, check out those pages, those are links, so that should work for you. Um, right. So that
I
big
can't remember the issue. Can you remind me the issue?
so right. So when people use well, I mean, one of the several issues is that you know longest and shortest sort of have different meaning when it comes to um optional and so um when you right, so that's sort of what we've had meaning here. So rather than sort of literally meaning longest or shortest, with longest it first attempts to match the pattern and only then uses the default. If optional is used, um uh right, so it's sort of you know uh different from the normal where sort of shortest is um sort of the default. And yes,
The level of uncertainty that you're expressing in your voice in talking about this is disquieting. What is I mean, in other words, I okay. Who else? Sorry, I'm not. Did we make a change to the code here, or is this just a documentation change?
this is just a documentation change. Right. And so if you right, look at sort of one of the sort of the question that sort of sparked this whole investigation, that's the why does longest not help here? Um, and right, if you want to
Look, I'm sorry.
if you want to get the
Functionality-wise, we're not. I'm. This is all incredibly obscure. Let me just ask this question. We don't believe there's a problem with functionality, correct?
um
If we don't believe there's a problem with functionality, this is pure documentation. If you guys think this documentation helps the situation, I'm sure it's fine. I don't think we need to discuss this here, unless there's a question about the functionality.
okay, so all right, so there is sort of a bigger question about the functionality, which is I mean, and there are a couple of sort of points about here. So originally, um, uh, optional required that there be, a blank inside of it. Not blank sequence, not anything else. It had to, it could be any variety of blank, but it had to be exactly one blank. This wasn't documented anywhere other than in an error message,
But was it just an implementation limitation?
perhaps. And um, Right. So now right. But in particular, this behavior of longest and shortest made sense because, you know, there were only two possible lengths, 0 and 1. And so these sort of meanings of longest and shortest sort of effectively made the blank either not be used or be used, and that made sense. And the fact that it was had the default, opposite default made sense because that, it would be stupid if you always use the default and never the thing inside of it. Um, um, then we made this. Now we didn't sort of intentionally change this unless, Danny has turned up evidence that he did this intentionally. But right, we did make this change in version 10 point something where, the default value didn't have to match the same restrictions um uh as the pattern, right? So you could have like a blank string, but the default value could be 0. Um, and when he did that, he also allowed sort of more general patterns, but they're sort of edge cases. So for example, there's that bug listed there that, if there isn't at least some variety of, blank in there, optional doesn't do what you think. And, Nick M has some, very in the last section there has some very obscure thing of using longest with alternatives. And I don't even, we haven't defined what that means. And
And we didn't have pattern sequence at the time when we invented longest.
Right. And so, you know, do we want to spend the time to define what these things mean? I don't know.
Well, not right this second, we don't.
Right.
We've got things for version 14. This is not this is not a burning issue.
Yes, I agree. The one thing is that we might right. The one thing that we might want to think about is whether the requiring the blank is that a bug of something other than P5, or is that
Look, this needs somebody to dig in. And, I think this is a when the pattern matcher is rewritten, we should rethink this.
okay.
And I don't think it's I just don't think this is a corner case of a corner case. It's
All right. Yeah,
I suspect I've been bitten by this because I've randomly used longest and shortest for things, and I don't understand what they do in the context of triple blanks and things. But I just keep on poking it until it works, and that's not great. And I think when we rewrite the pattern matcher, we need to look at this more carefully. But I think anything that we try and do other than that is going to be a hack job because we haven't really dug in and understand the full context of it. And I think it's better not to do anything and just to add documentation.
Okay, well then yes. And since which is, a perfectly reasonable place that I was hoping to get to. The main thing is, that was the sort of level of decision I wanted. And if you're okay with
I think I'm okay with that. So long as we're not
the
committing in this new documentation to something that we're going to regret later.
I don't think we are.
Okay, fine. Okay. Trace original to automatic.
Right.
So, I mean, I've been now using.
Sorry, can I leave? Because I was.
You were there for the first thing. Do you have anything to say
about the first thing? I mean, I'll be reading email. So,
but... do you have anything to say about the first thing before we close it off?
No, I agree with everything that you were saying. I mean, there is a detailed analysis, and we can have simpler or more difficult examples. But I agree with what you decided. I think that's
all right. Fine. See you, Tom.
Just then. Okay.
Okay. I mean, isn't this an Ian production, this trace original thing? No, it's Ian is the user of this in TraceGraph, correct?
Right. So I mean, Danny did the implementation, Ian is the consumer, and they're both here. And we have some pretty examples there for you.
This is perfectly reasonable.
Okay. And if you're okay with the note that Ian.
I think I am. Yeah, this looks reasonable.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so this John will need to take over here because I'm not sure I fully grok.
Yeah.
the-
Okay. So, well, first of all, you can open up the documentation for notebook import.
Which version? Let's see. Where do I need to go?
I mean, this has been around for a while, for a few released
Okay,
versions
so
now.
I just
So,
have to open generic notebook import. By the way, I found a horrible thing with them. I've got a raft failure again.
okay.
I have notebook import. I get a raft. It's all good. I open the thing up to this. Now, oh my gosh. The raft goes away. I'm about to type an argument, which is exactly when I need the raft. And kaboomosaurus, the raft goes away. Anyway,
That
we'll
is
talk
not
about
a life raft.
I mean,
it is
Yeah,
a life raft.
This
Bit of a
this
different virtual
this
one.
isn't a newly reported thing. You mentioned this in the last user assistance meeting. We talked about this.
Okay, all right.
I
Okay. This
don't-
particular thing?
I mean, I don't even necessarily think that's wrong. It's
I
not
think
a
it's
tweet
wrong.
that's wrong.
Okay, all right. Let's not cover this right now. Okay, notebook import.
Okay, so if you open up the details and options section, you'll see that we already have a thing. We have two options documented here. Interestingly, both of the options are in their string forms,
Oof.
because they're not used elsewhere, and I don't
Ugh.
know, because people
Ugh.
are being lazy or something. I don't
Ugh.
know. Okay, so flattened cell groups is already a thing that works for notebook import. I'm not proposing any changes for notebook import. What I am proposing is that flattened cell groups, it can become an interesting option for a couple of other functions. For cells, it could do exactly what it does for notebook import right now, which is just to wrap nested lists around cell groups.
Nested lists or flattened? I don't understand.
Well, flattened cell groups is true by default. So by default, you get things flattened, but you can set it to false if you want the cell groups.
By cell groups, we mean that it is a cell inside a cell like this.
Yes,
So I don't think it's really flattened cell groups. What I think it really is, make them into lists.
Sorry, sorry, I don't actually know what you mean by a cell inside a cell.
Well, look at
in
this.
terms
I mean,
of yeah, but I mean that is how we represent the serialization of cell groups. I
know.
mean, yeah,
I know, but what I'm saying is, what flattened cell groups is doing is taking this out from being a nested cell object and turning it into a nested list object.
Take a look at that first output of notebook import, where I've set flattened cell groups to false. If I hadn't set flattened cell groups, you would have just gotten a flat list because it's true by default. But by setting it to false, notice that it nests in this case, input and output cells together, which are grouped.
I understand it. In other words, it gives. Okay.
Here it's just using lists for nesting, just to be simple. I think, because notebook import wanted to, produce simple results.
As opposed to what?
Well, as opposed to what notebook read does, which is, high fidelity, but requires a high degree of knowledge of what's going on.
Okay, so let me just understand. The issue is, if you use nested lists for cell groups, then the head group of a cell appears where?
That statement didn't make sense. I don't know what you mean by head group of a cell.
Like the section cell, I think.
No, the
is
section heading cell.
The head
Right.
cell. The head cell of a group, you mean?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
So right now, cell group data, the cell group data contains the group of cells, right? And the
Correct.
outside cell is the head cell. Is that not correct?
No, that is not correct. The cell group data contains everything, including the head cell.
What's the syntax of cell group data?
So cell group data takes two arguments. The first argument is a list of cell expressions. And then the second argument is the state of the cell. Is it open or closed or reverse closed or that sort of thing?
Okay. All right. So in the flattened cell groups.
But the thing is that cell group data never appears nakedly. Cell group data always appears inside of a cell expression.
Why?
Because that's the syntax that was agreed upon before I started working on the front end. As you know, that goes pretty far back.
Yeah, okay. So this is 35-year-old.
Teo.
So, yeah. I mean, the reasoning, I think, was back in the day that the first, that you had PostScript data and text data and box data and bitmap data, and all these were kind of different cell types. The idea was each thing was a different cell type. And so then the question was how to represent cell groups. And, in hindsight, I don't fully agree with this decision, but we've been doing it forever, so I don't want to change it. We said, well, let's just call that cell group data. And like everything else, it would be wrapped by a cell, even though there isn't actually a cell around it. It's only wrapped by a cell in the serialization.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the serialization we can't change, I guess.
Right.
It's and we have great compatibility for 35 years.
Yeah, and this is why notebook import, aspires in the flattened cell groups false case to do something much simpler, which is just use sublists.
Well, how does it know? I don't understand that.
Notebook import, it should be said, notebook import is just giving you the grouping data. It's not giving you the state of the groups.
Right.
Presumably, no one really cares if you're dealing with notebook import.
I'm not sure that's true.
Well, my point being that if you cared to that degree, you would go to notebook read. Because notebook read is the high fidelity, no data loss whatsoever.
But I could argue that notebook import, and I assume Lou is here, that notebook import.
Lou is not here, but Lou and I have talked. But Lou and I have talked about this.
All right, but I mean, to me, there should be a version of notebook import that says, "Get me only the visible cells."
No one has ever asked for that.
I can imagine that being useful because that's the get me every cell and get me only the cells that are open, visible.
That's not the same. Those are not the same thing, visible and open.
Yeah, I get it. But I mean, that's a finer gradation. But I mean, get me all the cells I can see. And now the question here is, do I want them as the high fidelity notebook read thing, or do I want them as nested lists?
Well, right? and the whole idea of notebook import is, I mean, you could, in principle, have always done the sorts of things you do with notebook import, but notebook import is trying to lower the bar.
I know. The only thing that it's returning a list of cells, right? And it's presumably returning if you say text.
Right. So you have two in-out groups in this
Correct.
thing.
Yes.
And you get a list of two lists.
Correct.
Right. And right? So
Why is notebook
presumably, if
import
you
not-
know you
why is
if you
this not
added
coming
a
back? I'm sorry, what's happening here? Why did, oh, it was just slow as hell?
Well, it was calling notebook evaluate and I'm not sure why the notebook evaluate sometimes is a bit persnickety in that regard. I'm not sure if that's what happened or
Okay,
not.
so this
but,
is
you
what
know,
we see here.
Yes.
And if I say, I'm totally confused by this, I'm totally confused.
So yeah. So now that's the default behavior. You could actually remove the option and you would get the same behavior.
Okay, the default behavior is just bring in the cells in the order they appear in the notebook. I don't care how they're grouped. Right?
Correct.
Okay, so I think
And
this is
I'm not,
more like it.
and to be
Yeah.
clear, I'm not asking to change any of this for notebook import. I'm just explaining it because I want to add functionality to similar functionality to other functions.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. Which I think is fine, but I don't, this name really doesn't work. And this name doesn't work, and the fact that it's a string doesn't work.
Clearly.
So
And I would happily throw myself on my sword if I were involved in the base design of this function, but somehow I got cut out of the design. So
I don't think we ever, I think it was viewed as an experimental function, which I don't know why it isn't, or whatever. That this should have been changed. But anyway, never mind.
I agree, and I'm willing to make that happen pending this discussion.
Okay, all right, fine. Okay.
so
Let's
so
understand.
what would be
Guys,
so
can we please just focus on what we're actually trying to deal with here? Look,
that-
what we've
well,
got.
that-
Go ahead.
Well,
Go on.
I am trying to understand how this name will map to other functions, and in particular,
The
you
name
know,
is no good.
exactly. Well, which is why I'm trying to understand how this will affect other functions. So, for example, in Notebook Read, what will it do?
Well, so
Or
in
will it
notebook,
not?
so first of all, in notebook read, its default would be different because we can't change notebook read. Notebook reads
Well, obviously.
default behavior. But what I'm proposing is that if you set flattened cell groups or whatever we call it to true, then it wouldn't give you any of that cell group data stuff at all. It would simply give you a list of cell expressions. Much like, what we just saw with notebook import.
Okay, right. In which case, I feel like flattened cell. So if in the notebook import case, if you evaluated that third input in the first input cell without the notebook, without the flattened cell groups, would you get basically the same thing as notebook read with a cell of cell group data of blah blah blah?
Correct.
Yeah, in which case I feel like flattened cell groups is the completely wrong name, right? Because it's like, right, it's your it's not really flattening, it's like removing or groups as lists or
Yes,
something.
yes, you are correct. It's basically stripping them.
Yeah.
Well, so why don't we have, preserve grouping, preserve cell grouping, or true or false strip cell grouping?
Well, I don't think we need two. I don't
No.
think we
I
need two
understand.
options.
It's either
But yeah,
it's one or
those.
the other,
Yeah.
right? I mean, strip. We have these things. What is it called? Strip on. What is it called? Strip on input.
Strip on input.
Yeah.
Why am I not finding this in why am I not finding that?
It's a pretty low level option. It's possible that it's been omitted
Oh no!
intentionally.
Wait! Look! What's going on here?
Well,
Oh, it's showing up in my completion.
maybe you have enough like package symbols that are
This is a prototype build, so I don't know what. I think it's just a bug. So it needs to be looked at. Oh, no, it isn't. That's 13.1, 13.3. Okay, somebody's got
I
to
think
look
it's losing to all the string P functions
Right,
due
you
to the fuzzy
probably don't have
matching.
full sensitive completion
Right,
on.
and it gets downranked because it's an option and you're
I don't
typing
care
an
that it's
option
down,
name.
right? Why is it not? Oh, you mean
It is there, we just need to get past the P,
Oh, I see.
because those are all string P things.
Oh, but
So
this is
once
just
you
something
get-
stupid.
No,
in-
no, 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 no.
No,
That's not
because
stupid at all.
All right, okay.
It's highly intelligent, actually.
and it's doing exactly what you wanted, which is to sort of, not insist on matching cases. If we defaulted to, matching
All right, okay. I'm gonna stop complaining about that for a second. Okay, so then strip. What do we call cell? What is the grouping option? Strip cell grouping.
Let's see. We have a couple of, we have cell grouping, whole cell group opener, cell grouping rules. We're definitely using the phrase cell group or cell grouping in all these cases. Strip cell grouping is perfectly reasonable. I'd be happy with that.
Okay, then let's go with this. I mean, strip
Okay.
cell grouping, then that can work in all these different cases. All right, let's
Yes.
while we're at it.
So it would default to true for notebook import and cells, and it would
Yep.
default to false for notebook read.
Sounds right to me.
Okay.
Okay, what's this one here?
So this is basically something that allows you to, well, go down to the options examples. I think that might be the best place to look it up. So it's basically, a way to customize, instead of having the same rule apply to each and every cell, have different rules for different cell styles.
And why don't we call it cell style import rules? Do we have an analogy with that, with import somehow?
Not with imports.
Yeah, definitely not with import, because that's what might be a related context.
Well, I'd be okay with cell style import rules.
Okay, and I can write that up as well. Happy to
sounds
do
good.
so. Okay,
Right.
that's my piece.
Thanks. See ya.
I asked Ian if I was clear enough, and he told me I needed an additional exclamation point to properly convey my feelings. So that's why there are 4 there.
So here's the issue. What is a good mechanism? I've got an expression, and I just want to store it in the cloud so I can retrieve it at some later time. And I just want a UUID for it. I just want to handle, maybe there's a different mechanism for doing it. Maybe it's create cloud expression. I don't know. Is that the right thing?
I mean, why is this not like cloud put? I mean,
it is cloud put. This literally works with cloud put.
Oh,
and
I'm just confuzzled.
But I was in a previous discussion with you about this, and you thought that cloud put didn't work. One argument cloud put didn't work, but it does.
And now if I say get of that.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just confuzzled. Okay, ignore it. This
okay.
Just let's make sure that the cloud export points to cloud put.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. So there are right. So there are a couple of wrinkles there. we discussed this at some point and decided it wouldn't be useful, but we didn't record why, and I was unable.
I'm supposed to go to some other meeting in just a couple of minutes here.
I mean, if you want to punt on this till next
Well,
time,
but the idea was nest f2 of x.
right?
It's like f to the power 2. Compose f twice and apply it to x.
Yep. I mean, I understand what the proposal is. We decided at some point it wouldn't be useful. Like I said, we didn't record why. One possible issue is that nestgraph and nesttree document the 2-arg form to basically be do it one step. So this would be inconsistent.
I don't think that's a huge problem, although I think the do it one step thing is a bit weird anyway.
Right. And, if we wanted to extend this to all of the nest things, then, right, we would only be able to do the most basic of the nest whiles as an operator form, right? Because they're distinguished by additional
I don't
arguments.
think we need nest while as an operator form. I think the point here is merely the straightforward thing of functional square of f.
And so would it actually evaluate to f compose f?
That's an interesting.
Or composition f comma f?
I don't think so. I think it would be just an operator form that just sits there symbolically. I think that's the most useful thing.
Yeah. I mean, right. If we do nest, we should also do nest lists, but
sure,
if we're okay with them being different from the nest tree and we're ignoring nest while, I don't think. I mean, Danny, do you have any comments on, or Ian?
I don't see any earthly reason why we really want this.
Because I
Other
wanted
than that.
it can make very nice, elegant code. That's the reason. That's why I want it. Just for code elegance. I got to run.
All right.
See you guys. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.